Professor had taught at the Galactic Academy for 300 cycles. She had seen students from over 200 different species walk through her classroom doors. She had taught beings made of light, creatures that breathed methane, and students who communicated only through color changes in their skin. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until the day the human arrived. The morning started like any other. Adjusted her 6 limbs on her teaching platform and checked her lesson notes. Her survival protocols class was scheduled to begin in 10 minutes. The students were already filing in. There was a with beautiful translucent wings that caught the light like glass. There was Hollow Whisper, a whose small furry body trembled at almost everything. There was Gloop, a whose gel-like body changed shape depending on his mood. And there were a dozen others from worlds across the galaxy. They were good students, careful students, students who understood that space was dangerous and that following safety rules meant staying alive. Then the door opened one more time, and everything changed. The human male walked in like he owned the place. He was tall by galactic standards, with solid bones and thick muscles that moved under his skin in a way that made uncomfortable. His name, according to her class list, was. He was the first Terran exchange student in the Academy's entire history. The reaction from the other students was immediate. His wings locked against her back in a fear response. Hollow Whisper made a small squeaking sound and pressed himself against the wall. Gloop's body became very flat and very still, like he was trying to disappear into the floor. The other students moved away from the human without even thinking about it. It was instinct. It was survival. Did not seem to notice. He looked around the room with curious eyes and smiled. That was the moment Professor felt her secondary heart skip a beat. The human had just shown his teeth. His flat, blunt, bone-crushing teeth. On most worlds, showing teeth was a threat display. It meant, I am going to eat you. But humans, she had read in her preparation materials, showed their teeth when they were happy. What kind of species had evolved to make threats look like friendliness? Found an empty seat near the middle of the room. The seats around him remained empty. He did not seem to mind. He pulled out a small notebook and a writing tool and looked up at the professor with an expression of polite attention. Cleared her throat. Her voice came out higher than she intended. Class, as you may have noticed, we have a new student joining us today. This is from Earth. He will be studying with us for the next academic cycle as part of the Galactic Exchange Program. Raised his hand in a small wave. Hi everyone, nice to meet you all. No one responded. His wings were shaking. Hollow Whisper had curled into a ball. Professor pressed forward. Today we will begin Unit 7 of our curriculum. This unit is titled Why Species Require Modified Safety Curriculum. I think the timing is appropriate. She activated the holographic display system. A rotating planet appeared in the center of the room. It was blue and green and covered in swirling white clouds. It looked almost peaceful from a distance. This, said, is Earth. Galactic Classification, Class 12. Raised his hand. Excuse me, Professor, what exactly is a... The silence that followed was so complete that could hear the soft hum of the station's life support systems. Every student in the room turned to stare at the human. Even Hollow Whisper unrolled himself slightly to look. Whispered to Gloop beside her. He does not know, how can he not know? Professor realized that her mouth had fallen open. She closed it and tried to find her words. A human is a planet where the environmental conditions are so extreme, so hostile, so fundamentally dangerous that the development of intelligent life should be statistically impossible. And yet somehow, life not only develops but thrives. Your planet is one of the most severe examples in known space. Looked at the rotating image of Earth. He tilted his head slightly. Really, it seems pretty normal to me. Normal, repeated. She felt a strange sensation in her thorax. She later identified it as disbelief mixed with fear. Let me share some information about your human. Please tell me if any of this is incorrect. She pulled up her research notes on the display. Earth has a gravitational pull of 1.0 standard gravities. This is considered extremely high. Most sapient species develop on worlds with zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.6 standard gravity. Your bones and muscles are designed for a crushing force that would flatten most beings in this room. Nodded slowly. I guess Earth does have pretty strong gravity compared to some places. Your planet rotates on a tilted axis, continued. This creates something called seasons, where the temperature can vary by up to 70 degrees standard over the course of a single orbital cycle. You have zones where water falls from the sky as frozen crystals. Snow said, "Yeah, my friend and I used to build snow castles when we were kids. It was fun." Hollow Whisper made a sound like a small scream. Your atmosphere, pressed on, her voice becoming slightly unsteady, contains 21% oxygen. This is a combustion risk level. The air you breathe is technically flammable. Well, it does not just catch fire on its own, said reasonably. You need a spark or something. Your planet has no protective shell around it. Radiation from your star hits the surface directly. Your species adapted by developing a pigment response called tanning, where your skin changes color to protect itself from burning. Sunburns can be pretty bad if you are not careful, admitted. Professor stared at him. The human was agreeing with everything she said, but he did not seem to understand why it was horrifying. He talked about these things like they were minor inconveniences, not death sentences. Raised a trembling wing. "Professor, may I ask a question?" "Yes." "The human. He speaks of these things so calmly. Does his species not understand danger?" Turned to look at, his expression was friendly and open. "We understand danger, we just deal with it, I guess. You learn to be careful, but you cannot spend your whole life being scared. There is too much to do." The room was silent again. Professor looked at her human student and felt something she had not felt in 200 cycles of teaching. She felt completely, utterly unprepared. "I think," she said slowly, "that this is going to be a very educational semester, for all of us." Smiled again, showing all of his teeth. "I am looking forward to it, Professor." In the back of the room, Hollow Whisper fainted. 1 week had passed since joined the class. The other students had not relaxed around him. If anything, they had become more nervous. This was because they had started to notice things about the human that they could not explain. For example, ate meat, not processed protein substitute, not synthetic nutrition paste, actual dead animal flesh. He did this in the cafeteria where everyone could see him. He would cut pieces of cooked muscle tissue with a metal blade and put them in his mouth and chew them with his crushing teeth. The sounds alone made feel sick. For another example, exercised. Every morning he would go to the recreation area and do something called running, where he would move his body at high speed for no reason at all. No one was chasing him. There was no danger. He just ran because he wanted to. After running, he would lift heavy objects over and over again. He called this working out. When Gloop asked him why he did this, said it was to stay in shape. No one understood what shape he was trying to stay in. But the most disturbing thing about was how he reacted to danger. Or rather, how he did not react to danger. Professor had been building up to this lesson for days. Today's topic was emergency decompression protocols. This was one of the most important lessons in the entire curriculum. Space was empty. Space was cold. If the station's hull was ever breached, the air would rush out into the void, and anyone caught in the affected area would die within seconds. Unless they followed the protocol. Activated the main display and showed a diagram of a standard pressure suit. "Class, pay attention. This is the Model 7 emergency pressure suit. In the event of a hull breach, you will have exactly 43 seconds to reach one of these suits, put it on correctly, and seal all 7 connection points. 43 seconds, not 44, not 45, 43. If you take longer than 43 seconds, you will be dead before help arrives." The students were all taking notes frantically. All except who was looking at the diagram with a puzzled expression on his face. The suits are located in emergency stations throughout the station, continued. There is always a station within 30 meters of any point on this level. You have been given maps. You should have memorized these locations by now. Raised her wing. Professor, what if the emergency station is damaged in the breach? Excellent question. If your nearest station is compromised, you must proceed to the secondary station. This is why we drill. This is why we practice. Your body must know what to do before your mind has time to think. Hollow Whisper was trembling so hard that his fur was vibrating. What if both stations are damaged? Then you find a sealed room and hope that rescue arrives before the air runs out. His voice was grim. But this is unlikely. The station has many redundancies. The important thing is not to panic. Panic kills faster than vacuum. Raised his hand. Professor, I have a question. Yes, human. These suits look really complicated. 7 connection points. That seems like a lot of steps when you are in an emergency. What if someone just held their breath and ran to the next pressurized section instead? The room went completely silent. Felt her primary heart stop for a moment. Dropped her writing tool. Gloop lost cohesion slightly and had to pull himself back together. Hold your breath, repeated slowly, and run through vacuum. Yeah, seemed unaware that he had said something insane. I read that humans can survive in space for about 90 seconds if we exhale first. Something about the air in your lungs expanding if you hold your breath. But if you breathe out and then run really fast, you could probably make it to safety before anything too bad happens. Anything too bad? Hollow Whisper whispered in horror. I mean, you would probably get some bruising, admitted. Maybe some burst blood vessels in your eyes. Your skin would swell up a little, but nothing permanent, as long as you got to air within a minute or so. Professor gripped her teaching platform with all 6 limbs. She needed to hold onto something solid. Human, the protocol exists for a reason. The suits provide protection, oxygen, and communication capabilities. Running through vacuum is not a survival strategy. It is suicide. For most species, sure, said. But humans are pretty tough. My grandfather survived being buried under a collapsed building for 3 days once. She said the worst part was being bored. No one knew what to say to that. Decided to move forward with the lesson. Perhaps a practical demonstration would help the human understand. We will now conduct a drill. When I trigger the alarm, you will all proceed to the nearest emergency station, retrieve a suit, and seal yourself inside. Your times will be recorded. Begin. She pressed the alarm button. The sound was loud and sharp, designed to trigger an immediate stress response. The students leaped from their seats and rushed toward the emergency stations. His wings carried her quickly through the air, Hollow Whisper on his many small legs. Gloop stretched his body into a flowing shape and moved with surprising speed. Stood up from his seat slowly. He stretched his arms above his head and yawned. Human shouted over the alarm. The drill has begun, move. Oh, right, started walking toward the emergency station. Not running, walking. He moved like he was taking a pleasant stroll through a garden. The other students had already reached their stations. Was struggling with the 3rd connection point on her suit. Hollow Whisper was having trouble reaching the higher seals with his small body. Gloop was trying to figure out how to fit his gel form into a suit designed for solid beings. Reached his station in 12 seconds. He looked at the suit hanging there. He did not put it on. Human was starting to feel a pressure in her head that she recognized as extreme stress. Put on the suit. Picked up the suit and examined it. These connection points are really small. It would take forever to seal all of them, and this material does not look very flexible. How are you supposed to move in this thing? You are not supposed to move. You are supposed to survive. But what if you need to help someone else? What if there is another person who cannot reach a suit? You cannot help them if you are stuck inside this thing. The alarm was still blaring. The other students had finished sealing their suits. They stood there, watching the human have a casual conversation with the professor about the design flaws of emergency equipment. Turned off the alarm, her limbs were shaking. Class is dismissed early today. Everyone except human may leave. The students filed out quickly, looked back once with an expression that might have been pity or might have been fear. When they were alone, lowered herself to eye level. Human, I need you to understand something. The protocols are not suggestions, they are requirements. They exist because without them people die. Met her gaze without flinching. I understand that, Professor, but where I come from, sometimes the protocols get in the way of actually helping. Sometimes you have to improvise. Improvise, repeated. Yeah, like one time my sister was hiking in the mountains and her friend fell and broke his leg. The protocol would have been to wait for rescue, but rescue would have taken 6 hours and there was a storm coming. So carried him down the mountain on her back, 3 kilometers, over rough terrain, in the rain. Stared at him. She carried an injured person for 3 kilometers. Yeah, she said her legs hurt for a week after, but her friend was fine. That is what matters, right? The person being okay. Professor did not know how to respond. In her entire career, she had never met someone who viewed danger as a problem to be solved rather than a threat to be avoided. She did not know if this made humans brave or insane. Perhaps she thought it was both. I think, she said slowly, that I need to do more research on your species. Smiled his threatening smile. I'm happy to help if you have questions, Professor. Humans love talking about ourselves. Believed him. That was what worried her most. 3 weeks into the semester, the impossible happened. It was a normal day. Professor was teaching a lesson about emergency communication systems. The students were taking notes, was doodling something in his notebook that looked like a small animal with floppy ears. Everything was peaceful and routine. Then the station shook. The vibration was small at first. Most of the students did not even notice it, but had spent 300 cycles on space stations. She knew what that vibration meant. She looked up at the ceiling with a feeling of cold dread spreading through her body. The alarm started screaming 1 second later. Red lights flashed across the room. The computer's voice spoke in calm, measured tones that somehow made everything more terrifying. Warning. Hull breach detected in Section 7, Room 12. Emergency protocols are now in effect. All personnel proceed to designated safety stations. Section 7, Room 12. That was this room. His eyes scanned the walls and found it immediately. A small hole, no bigger than her smallest limb, had appeared in the far corner of the ceiling. Something had punched through the hull from outside. A micrometeor, probably. A tiny piece of rock flying through space at incredible speed. It had hit them like a bullet. Air was already rushing toward the hole. Could see papers and small objects being pulled across the room. The whistle of escaping atmosphere was high and sharp and terrible. She knew the numbers. A hole that size would drain the room's air in approximately 4 minutes, but the pressure differential would become dangerous long before that. They had maybe 2 minutes before breathing became difficult, maybe 90 seconds before people started passing out. Tried to move, she tried to shout orders, she tried to do anything at all. But her body would not obey her. 300 cycles of teaching had not prepared her for actual danger. Her limbs locked in place. Her voice died in her throat. Her mind went blank with pure, overwhelming fear. She was not alone. All around the room her students were experiencing the same thing. His wings had frozen against her back. Her beautiful translucent membranes were stiff with terror. Hollow Whisper had curled into a tight ball, his small body shaking uncontrollably. Gloop had lost cohesion completely. His gel body was spreading across the floor like a puddle. The prey response. The ancient survival instinct that told them to hide, to freeze, to become invisible until the danger passed. It had kept their ancestors alive on their gentle for millions of years. Here it would kill them. Did not freeze. Later, when tried to describe what happened next, she struggled to find the words. The human moved differently than anything she had ever seen. There was no hesitation. There was no pause to consider options. There was only action. Was out of his seat before the alarm finished its first cycle. He ran toward the emergency supply locker, but he did not go for the pressure suits. Instead, he grabbed the emergency sealant kit. It was a large case, designed to be carried by a team of 3 trained engineers, picked it up with one hand. "Everyone get down and cover your faces," he shouted. His voice cut through the screaming alarm like a blade. No one moved. No one could move. Did not wait for them to respond. He ran toward the breach. The pull of the escaping air was strong now. Objects were flying across the room. A writing tool hit in the face, leaving a red mark on his cheek. He did not slow down. He pushed forward against the wind like it was nothing. When he reached the wall beneath the breach, he jumped. The leap carried him 3 meters straight up. His fingers caught the edge of a support beam. He hung there one-handed, while the air tried to tear him away. His hair was whipping around his face. His clothes were pressed flat against his body. His ears were popping from the pressure change. He was smiling. With his free hand, opened the sealant kit. He pulled out a cylinder of quick-hardening foam. The wind was screaming past him. His eyes were watering from the pressure. Small blood vessels in his nose had started to burst, and a thin line of red was running down his lip. He did not care. Pointed the cylinder at the breach and triggered it. The foam sprayed out in a thick stream. It hit the hole and began expanding immediately, filling the gap, but the suction was pulling it away. The first layer of foam was torn off into space. Sprayed more and more and more. The canister ran empty. The hole was still there, smaller now but still leaking. Without hesitation, reached into the kit and grabbed another canister. He emptied that one too, then a third. The wind stopped. The sudden silence was almost as shocking as the alarm had been. Hung from the support beam for a moment longer, breathing hard. Then he dropped to the floor. The impact made a loud sound, but he landed on his feet, steady and balanced. He turned around to face the class. His face was pale. Blood was dripping from his nose. His eyes were red and irritated. His skin had a slightly swollen look that made him appear strange and puffy. But he was grinning. "Everyone okay?" he asked. No one answered. They were all staring at him with expressions of total shock. Found her voice first. It came out as a whisper. "You, how did you?" Wiped the blood from his nose with the back of his hand. He looked at the red smear on his skin and shrugged. The hole was pretty small. I figured if I could seal it fast enough, we would be fine. "You ran toward the breach," said. Her voice was shaking. "The air was escaping. You ran toward it." "Well, yeah, that is where the problem was." "You jumped 3 meters straight up," Hollow Whisper added. He had uncurled from his ball, but his fur was still standing on end, while being pulled toward vacuum. "Adrenaline," said, like that explained everything. "Humans get a big boost when things get dangerous. Makes us stronger and faster for a little while. It wears off after, though. I am probably going to be really tired in about 10 minutes. The emergency response team arrived shortly after. They were a crew of engineers in full pressure suits, carrying professional sealing equipment. They stopped in the doorway and stared at the breach that had already been fixed. "Who did this?" the lead engineer asked. Everyone pointed at. The engineer looked at the human. Then she looked at the breach. Then she looked at her own equipment, which was designed for exactly this kind of emergency, but had not been needed. "You sealed a hull breach," she said slowly, "by yourself in approximately 20 seconds. Shrugged. "I had good foam." Medical personnel arrived next. They tried to take to the medical bay, but he insisted on walking there himself. "My legs work fine," he said. No point in wasting a stretcher. Professor followed him. She did not know why. She just knew that she could not let this human out of her sight, not after what she had just seen. In the medical bay, a doctor examined while making sounds of disbelief. Burst capillaries in both eyes, minor tissue swelling in your extremities, bruised eardrums, elevated heart rate and blood pressure. The doctor looked up from her scanner. You should be unconscious. You should be in severe pain. Why are you smiling? Was typing on his communication device. Sorry, I am just sending a message to my sister. She is not going to believe this. Not going to believe what? That you nearly died. That I got to seal a hull breach. She is going to be so jealous. She always wanted to be an astronaut. The doctor stared at him. Then she turned to Professor. Is this normal for humans? Thought about the question for a long time. I am beginning to think, she said finally, that nothing about humans is normal. Looked up from his device and grinned. Thanks, Professor. That is really nice of you to say. Did not know how to explain that it had not been a compliment. That evening, Professor could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the human running toward the breach. She saw him jumping through the air while the atmosphere tried to drag him into space. She saw him smiling with blood running down his face. She needed answers. The human's quarters were on the residential level. Walked there slowly, her 6 limbs carrying her through the quiet corridors of the sleeping station. When she reached door, she hesitated. It was late. Perhaps he was resting. Perhaps she should wait until morning. Then she heard strange sounds coming from inside. Rhythmic thumping, heavy breathing, grunting. Pressed the door chime in alarm. Was the human in distress? Was he injured? Had the doctor missed something? The door opened. Stood there, his skin glistening with moisture. He was wearing minimal clothing that revealed the thick muscles underneath his skin. His breathing was heavy but steady. Professor, is something wrong? I heard sounds, said. I thought you might be hurt. Oh no, I was just doing push-ups. The doctor said I should take it easy, but I felt restless. Exercise helps me calm down after exciting things happen. Stared at him. You experienced explosive decompression, suffered multiple injuries, and sealed a hull breach with your bare hands. And now you are exercising to calm down. Yeah, stepped back and gestured for her to enter. Do you want to come in? I was going to make some tea, or whatever the station has that is close to tea. Entered the human's quarters. They were small but comfortable, with a sleeping platform, a work desk, and a small food preparation area. What caught her attention were the images displayed on the walls. Pictures of other humans. A young female who looked similar to, an older female with gray hair and kind eyes. A group of young males making strange gestures with their hands. My family and friends, explained, seeing where she was looking. That is my sister, that is my grandmother, and those are my friends from school. And you keep images of them in your quarters. Of course, they are far away. It helps to see their faces. Moved to the food preparation area and began making something warm to drink. Please, sit down. What did you want to talk about? Settled onto a cushion, her limbs folded beneath her automatically. I want to understand what happened today, what you did, how you did it. You mean the breach? I mean all of it, the running toward danger, the complete lack of fear, the way you moved without hesitation, leaned forward. I have taught survival protocols for 300 cycles. I have seen hundreds of emergency drills. I have never seen anyone react the way you did. Was quiet for a moment. He finished preparing the drinks and brought 2 cups to where sat. He lowered himself to the floor across from her, moving with that strange, smooth grace that all humans seem to have. Can I ask you something first, Professor? Of course. When the breach happened, why did everyone freeze? I mean, you have all been trained, you know the protocols. Why did no one move? Felt a wave of shame wash through her, because we were afraid. But humans get afraid too. I was definitely scared up there. You did not look scared. Laughed. It was a warm sound without any mockery in it. I was terrified. My heart was beating so fast I thought it might explode. But that is the thing about humans. When we get scared, our bodies do not shut down. They speed up. I do not understand. Took a sip of his drink. When he spoke again, his voice was thoughtful. A long time ago on Earth, humans were not the most dangerous things around. There were bigger animals with sharper teeth and faster legs. We had no claws, no armor, no venom. We were just soft, squishy things trying to survive in a world that wanted to eat us. Nodded. This matches what I know about your evolutionary history. But here is the thing, we could not hide, we were too big and too slow. We could not run away. The predators were faster, so we had to do something else. We had to fight. He set down his cup and looked at directly. His eyes were intense in a way that made her secondary hearts beat faster. Our bodies evolved a response to danger. You probably know about adrenaline. When something threatens us, our bodies flood with chemicals that make us stronger, faster, and more alert. Our pain tolerance goes up. Our fear becomes fuel. Instead of shutting down, we power up. But why? Asked. What evolutionary advantage does running toward danger provide? Because sometimes running toward danger is the only way to survive. Smiled, but it was a serious smile. If a predator is chasing you and you cannot escape, what do? You turn around and fight. You make yourself as dangerous as possible. You show the predator that eating you will cost more than you are worth. Thought about this. On her, they had evolved as burrowing creatures. When danger came, they hid underground and waited for it to pass. The idea of confronting a predator directly was completely foreign to her biology. There is something else, continued. Something that humans have that I do not think many other species share. What is that? We protect each other, not just our families, not just our tribes, everyone. When a human sees another person in danger, something happens in our brains. We feel their fear like it is our own, and we want to make it stop. Gestured at the images on his wall. My friend is a volunteer firefighter back home. That means he runs into burning buildings to save strangers, people he has never met. He does not get paid for it. He does it because he cannot stand the thought of someone dying when he could have helped. That seems dangerous. It is extremely dangerous. Firefighters die every year, but keeps doing it anyway. Because for humans, doing nothing while someone else suffers is worse than risking our own lives. Was silent for a long time. She thought about the breach. She thought about how she had frozen while her students were in danger. She thought about how the human had moved without hesitation to save them all. You ran toward the breach, she said slowly, because we were in danger. Yes. You risked your life for beings you had known for only 3 weeks. Yes. Why? Looked at her like the answer was obvious. Because you needed help, and I could help. What else was I supposed to do? Felt something shifting in her understanding. For 300 cycles she had thought of as dangerous, unpredictable, frightening. She had taught her students to be cautious around them. But now she saw something different. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they cared. They cared so deeply, so intensely, that they would throw themselves into harm's way for complete strangers. They would run into fire. They would jump into vacuum. They would fight predators with their bare hands. They were not monsters, they were protectors. I owe you an apology, said. Blinked in surprise. For what? For the way I have treated you, for the way I have taught about your species. I called you like it was a warning, a threat, but I understand now. You are not dangerous to us. You are dangerous for us. You put yourselves at risk so others do not have to. His expression softened. That is a really nice thing to say, Professor. It is the truth, stood up. Thank you for talking with me. I have much to think about. As she moved toward the door, called after her, Professor. She turned back, yes. For what it is worth, I think you would have moved eventually. You and the others. You were just scared. Everyone gets scared. The important thing is what you do after. Considered this, and what should we do after? Smiled his threatening, wonderful human smile. Learn, grow, get better. That is what humans do. We fall down and we get back up, every time. Left the humans' quarters with a new understanding. And for the first time in 300 cycles, she began to wonder if her curriculum needed more than just minor adjustments. Perhaps it needed to be completely rewritten. 6 months had passed since the hull breach. The Galactic Academy looked the same from the outside, the same corridors, the same classrooms, the same students rushing between lessons. But inside Professor's classroom, everything had changed. The old sign on the door that read Survival Protocols for Non-Species had been replaced. The new sign said Emergency Response, Combined Methods. Below it, in smaller letters, were the names of 2 instructors, Professor, and listed as Human Consultant. Inside the classroom, something remarkable was happening. Stood in the center of the room, her translucent wings were spread wide. Her small body was trembling, but not from fear, from concentration. In front of her was a simulated emergency scenario. Red lights flashed, alarms blared. A holographic display showed a breach opening in the wall. "Remember your breathing," said. He stood nearby, his voice calm and steady. "In through the mouth, out through the nose, feel your body. You are not frozen, you are preparing." Closed her eyes. Her wings stopped shaking. When she opened her eyes again, they were focused. "Move," said. Moved. She was not fast by human standards, but she was moving. Her wings carried her toward the emergency station. Her limbs grabbed the sealant kit. She flew toward the simulated breach and began applying the foam. 38 seconds, not as fast as, but fast enough. When the simulation ended, hovered in the air, breathing hard. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. "I did it," she whispered. "I actually did it. I moved during an emergency." Grinned and held up his hand. "That deserves a high five." "A what?" He showed her the gesture, raised her wing and slapped it against his palm. The contact was harder than she expected, and she made a small yelp of surprise. "You hit pretty hard for someone with glass wings," said, still smiling. "I am getting stronger," said. There was wonder in her voice. "How is that possible?" "Practice. Your body learns what your mind teaches it. You kept trying, so you kept improving." Professor watched from the observation platform. Beside her sat an elder from the academic council, a being of great age and authority who had come to evaluate the new curriculum. "This is most unusual," the elder said. His gel body rippled with uncertainty. "You are teaching fear responses to species that evolved to freeze. Is this not dangerous?" "It would be dangerous if we were teaching them to fight," replied. "But we are not. We are teaching them to move, to think, to act instead of waiting." "And the human, is he not a risk?" Looked at, he was now working with hollow whisper, helping the small practice emergency crawling techniques. The human was patient, gentle. He never raised his voice or showed frustration when his students failed. "He is the best teacher I have ever worked with," said. The elder's body shifted colors. "This is a strong statement." "It is the truth. In 300 cycles, I taught thousands of students the protocols, how to follow rules, how to stay safe by staying still, but I never taught them how to actually survive, showed me what I was missing." Below them, the class had gathered for a group exercise. Species that would never have spoken to each other 6 months ago were now working as a team. Was teaching a young how to use his multiple limbs to carry emergency equipment. Hollow Whisper was showing a student how to compress his gel body to fit through small spaces. And Gloop, who had once lost cohesion at the first sign of stress, was demonstrating how to form his body into a temporary seal for small breaches. Stood at the center, watching over them all. "The key," he was saying, "is not to eliminate fear. Fear is useful. Fear tells you something is wrong. The key is to use fear as information instead of letting it control you. When you feel afraid, ask yourself, what is the danger? What can I do about it? What is my first step? A student raised a limb, but what if there is nothing we can do? Then you help someone else who can, you provide support, you give information, you keep everyone calm. His expression became serious. On Earth, we have people who do nothing but talk to others during emergencies. They are called dispatchers. They stay on communication lines and guide people through the worst moments of their lives. They never see the danger themselves, but they save lives every day. The student considered this, so there is always something we can do. Always, even if it is just holding someone's hand while help arrives. No action is too small if it helps another person. Professor felt her heart swell with an emotion she could not name. In 300 cycles, she had never felt this way about teaching. She had always seen it as her duty, her job. But now, watching her students grow beyond their evolutionary limits, she felt something else. Pride, deep, overwhelming pride. After class, the academic council elder approached directly. The human showed no fear of the ancient being towering over him. He simply looked up and smiled. "Human," the elder said, "your methods are unconventional. They challenge centuries of established safety doctrine. Many on the council are concerned." "I understand," said, "change can be scary." "Yes, it can." The elder paused. His gel body shifted through several colors. "But the results speak for themselves. Your students show improved response times and reduced freeze responses across all measured categories. 3 of your students successfully handled minor emergency situations last month without instructor supervision." "I heard about that," sealed a leaking pipe in the recreation area. She was really proud. "As she should be, as you should be." The elder extended a pseudopod toward. It was the gesture of respect. "You have done something remarkable here. You have shown us that evolution is not destiny, that beings can grow beyond the limits of their ancestors." Grasp the pseudopod gently. Everyone can grow, you just have to give them the chance to try. That evening, Professor sat in her office and wrote in her personal journal. It was a habit she had kept for 200 cycles, recording her thoughts and observations. But tonight's entry was different from any she had written before. She wrote about his strange human ways, about how he ran toward danger instead of away from it, about how he smiled when he was scared and exercised when he was stressed, about how he had taken a classroom full of frightened beings and turned them into something new. She wrote about what she had learned. That fear was not weakness. That freezing was not failure. That every being, no matter what world they came from, had the potential to be brave. And at the end, she wrote something that she had never expected to write. She wrote, "I have lived for 300 cycles. I have taught thousands of students from hundreds of worlds, but until I met the human, I never truly understood what teaching meant. It is not about filling minds with information. It is about showing people what they are capable of becoming. Did not just teach my students survival protocols. He taught them that they were worth saving. He taught them that they had value. He taught them to see themselves as heroes instead of victims." She paused, her writing limb hovering over the page. "Humans call people who run toward danger first responders. They see it as normal, expected, unremarkable, but I have seen the wider galaxy. I know how rare this quality truly is. On 1,000 worlds, beings hide from danger. On one world, one small blue and green world, beings evolve to face it head-on. We called them because their planet tried to kill them. We were wrong. Their planet did not try to kill them. Their planet trained them. Every storm, every predator, every disaster was a lesson. And the lesson was this: you are strong enough to survive. You are brave enough to help others. You matter. I am 300 cycles old. I have 300 more cycles ahead of me, and I intend to spend every one of them teaching what taught me. That courage is a choice. That kindness is a strength. that the best response to danger is not to run away, but to reach out a hand and help. She finished writing and closed her journal. Outside her window, the stars stretched endlessly into the void. Cold, empty, dangerous. But somewhere out there, on a small planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star, a species had evolved that refused to be afraid. And now, slowly, they were teaching the rest of the galaxy to do the same.